I recently saw a YouTube video from Patreon CEO Jack Conte, and the sentiment of it was what Jack thinks is happening in the creative economy, and why Patreon raising $155 million is another sign that the future is going to be really exciting for creative people. So I saw that as somebody who part of my identity is a creator. I got really excited about this video, especially for the vision it had for the creator economy and how it's evolving and how Patreon is aiming to serve creators. I was wondering if you both could tell us just a little bit about what is this transformation going on at Patreon, and what are you both most excited about, and what brought you into the organization?
You covered it well. I think the creator economy is evolving really rapidly. Patreon has a unique space in this world where creators deeply believe that Patreon has their best interests at heart. At the same time, with the sort of big addressable market here, the company recognizes that product innovation and product-oriented thinking is going to be a key part of our future. And with that, Patreon is making significant investments in product engineering, design, to overall elevate the team and execute really rapidly to help creators grow and build their businesses. And what brought me to Patreon is really a combination of the people, the direction, and the opportunity. Having had a chance to meet Jack and various other folks on the leadership team, I felt like it's a group of really smart folks, extremely focused on their mission, at the same time really driving a core culture of empowering the team to make directions, debate, discuss, to figure out how best to serve our mission of helping creators. And then on the direction, I do think that the creator economy will continue to evolve substantially over the next 5 years. So just wanted to be part of that journey. Sitting at Patreon, I get a chance to sort of learn and grow with it, as well as influence it from within. So that was really great. And specifically, I think there's so much work to do that the specific opportunity was very exciting to me.
Yeah, and just to add on to what Atish mentioned, like the transformation that we're seeing at Patreon is, the company is shifting from, let's say, like a payments company to a company that's focused on memberships with your favorite creator. And Patrick, I think one of the things that you asked in your question was like, hey, like what are we most excited about? For me, I got into tech because I realized, there was three things I realized. One is that, hey, I could build cool products. Two is I could have fun doing it. And three was I could make a living at it, right? And so in terms of this, the shift that Patreon is going through, and what makes me kind of most excited is doing the same, for creators in their industry. I think one of your other questions as well was just like, hey, like how does mobile fit in the picture?
Yeah.
And so, the way that mobile fits in the picture is, if you use Patreon today, it behaves somewhat like an email newsletter product today. But when folks are buying memberships with their favorite creator, what they're really buying is they're buying engagement with that favorite creator. And so like, I think we all know kind of like from, our like prior, experience that email is probably not the best platter to serve engagement on. And so that's why, Patreon is going really big on mobile. And, that's a big part of like why I'm here. And so, for mobile, our focus is going to be to, make kind of like mobile the place where, creators can really showcase their content and make it shine.
The thing that's really interesting about the story is like Patreon as a company, like what you're talking about, Shannon, like start off and was kind of in like the mobile payment space for a while. And then like the decision now to serve more of like the membership side of the thing is a pretty big shift in terms of almost like the how the organization accomplishes its mission. What was that like to come into, a company that's been around for a while, and kind of on the heels of like this new established strategy? And like, what was important of that early experience? Or were there any sort of like non-obvious challenges that popped in when you first jumped in?
Yeah, so I think in some sense, yes, you're right that we came in late in sort of Patreon's journey, but I actually hope that we've come in really early, because I think there's a long, big, ambitious future ahead. So I do think this is still sort of very early in Patreon's long-term journey. To specifically answer your question, I think there was already a lot of momentum behind a bunch of new folks coming in. And then personally for me, I think I don't know if it's as much of a challenge again, but it is really crucial to understand Patreon's perspective, understand each individual's perspective, and take that deeply into your work. Jack, for example, our CEO, brings a really creator-first perspective, being a creator himself. Then we have various other folks on the leadership team. Each person has a very unique experience and then a very different perspective. And for example, for growth, my job is to make sure that I understand all these diverse perspectives and then fold that into our thinking. To give you some concrete examples, I think Jack really understands well what kinds of changes or initiatives need creator feedback versus which are the ones that they'll really strongly resonate with in the journey of growth and running up perhaps experiments to help them grow their business. What are the sensitivities that one needs to account for, and what are the best processes to getting there? I think in any company, when you join at this stage, well, even like any company that you join, there is a time that it takes to sort of get your footing. You need to sort of understand the company. You need to start defining your frameworks, hopefully start having some wins, build a sense of trust and relationship for the team. And that's never easy. It's never easy. It's always challenging. But at the same time, to Shannon's point, I think like building a new team, building a new initiative is always requires a certain kind of person. But I've always enjoyed that. I much prefer building teams from the early stages rather than inheriting really large teams. And it's been great. It's been challenging, but I think that sort of self-inflicted sort of challenge, being ambitious and trying to drive impact quickly.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the size of Patreon today, when Atish and I joined, we were under 100 engineers. Today, if I had to guess, I want to say I would say we're probably like around 120. So relatively speaking, it's still a pretty early stage company, I would say, a smaller company. And if you think about it, Patreon just turned 9 years old. I think it was like a month or two ago. And so, Patrick, like you mentioned, like the company, has been around for like 9 years, but I think when you kind of like look at the size of the company and you look at the shift we're going through, in a lot of ways, it is just like, hey, kind of like that like startup mentality, right? With like what our jobs are. It's like, hey, building a growth team from scratch, building like a mobile team from scratch. This kind of like startup mentality, especially around like being able to move quickly, right? While also just having the resources to like execute well, right? And that includes like, hey, input from someone like Jack, who like is a creator himself, right? But in addition to kind of like the resources to like, hey, like hire the best people that we can on the teams. I think for me, it's been just like a nice balance, of a well-resourced company, but also kind of like some of the exciting benefits that you get from a early stage company.